In this lecture, I'll go through pre-civilization, the time period before the Mesopotamians, the first known human civilization. I'll talk about things I think every thinking person should know. If you just want the summary of this lecture, jump to the summary section. So, what is history? I'm sure there are many definitions of history, and it's a contentious topic to be fair. But I will define it as the story of mankind, which implies that, in its strictest sense, only humans have history. But if that's the case, you may wonder, why do we talk about nature, animals, infrastructure, and all the other things when discussing history? That's only because it helps us better understand the story of humans. Okay, so history is a story of mankind. But what do we even include in this story? At this point, it becomes useful to think about what's special to humans and define, at least try to define, what a human is. So, at least in the context of history, a useful definition that at least I've come across is that humans are the species that has the ability to consciously create change, consciously, in its immediate environment or of its situation. Now, what consequence does this definition have? It means that history effectively only starts when humans, that is, Homo sapiens, start to consciously change the environment. The key is consciously changing. And when do we see humans consciously changing its environment? It's when civilizations appear. So, in the rest of this lecture, I'll talk about the period before civilizations appear. This time period is what historians refer to as prehistory, also called the Stone Age because they use tools made out of stone. Some people also define prehistory as the period before we have written records. But I like to think of it as a time period where nature was the main driving force for change, not humans. And once this power dynamic flips, where now humans are the main driver of change, is when civilization and effectively history starts. Prehistory is divided into three eras: Old, Middle, and New Stone Age. Scholars also use the terms Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic, but I'll stick to Old, Middle, and New Stone Age. One thing to keep in mind is that although I'll provide the general time period of each era, the span of the eras differ from region to region, respective to the region's growth. So think of these eras more like stages of prehistory, stages of the human evolution during prehistory. I'll start by talking about the Old and the Middle Stone Age, since generally these two eras, the narrative are quite hard to separate. So the Old Stone Age is about 2.5 million to 200,000 years ago. Now to put that into perspective, we're living in the 21st century right now, right? And Jesus is said to be born around 0 AD, give or take. Now, multiply this duration, so 2,000 years, by 1,000. And that's the approximate duration of the Old Stone Age. We need 1,000 Jesuses. The Middle Stone Age spans from 200,000 years ago to 10,000 BC. And that's 100 Jesuses. First of all, human ancestors originated in Africa, most probably Eastern Africa. And during the Old Stone Age is when it is believed that apes slowly evolved into humans, and genetic racial divisions were also established during the Old Stone Age. Humans also serendipitously learned how to use fire, and this uses of fire can be said to be the very first revolution in human history. Fire is really important because fire and evolution are believed to be closely linked. With fire came changes in diet and social hierarchy and much more. And this acquiring of fire is believed to be the central force that pushed human ancestors to eventually evolve into our current form, both physically and mentally. And just some food for thought. In a lot of mythology across the world, fire is a recurring theme. For example, in Greek mythology, we see Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. So maybe this is just something to keep in the back of your mind. Also, while we're on the topic of evolution, the first biologically modern human is believed to have appeared during the Middle Stone Age. And before this, it's believed that the male and female roles were quite distinct, and that those roles were imposed by nature's doing, such as due to fertility cycles and so on. But this starts to change after the Stone Age, or prehistory, because afterwards humans start to make conscious change on its environment. Now, going on, during the Old Stone Age, we see the first instances of art. Some scholars believe that we can see glimpses of religious and ritualistic artifacts. One thing that really caught my attention is the stone figurine called Venus of Whole Fells. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Made 40,000 years ago. It's most certainly a fertility symbol, and we see this fertility symbol, reoccurring throughout all of human civilization. So that's another thing to keep in mind, I think. Maybe, some parts of our culture hasn't really changed from the past. Another key thing to know is that the human species had a few close relatives. But before, let's have a quick biology review. Have you heard of the term Homo sapiens? Well, I used it in my introduction, I think. But that's a scientific way of classifying humans. It's called taxonomy, and each word or level represents a group of characteristics. We have a total of 8 levels, and each level specifies the characteristics of a certain organism more and more, thereby acting as a filter. The levels important to our discussion right now are the last 3 levels: family, genus, and species. Now, humans are in the Hominidae family. Other mammals included in this family are chimps, gorillas, and orangutans. Characteristics of this family are those such as upright posture. Next, the genus gets more specific. Humans are in the genus called Homo, and the key characteristics is the S-shaped spine. And this sounds a lot like humans, right? Now, at this point, you may be wondering if there's any need to go further, but there is. There were other organisms with S-shaped spines. Humans are classified under the species sapiens, which is where we get the term Homo sapiens. Now, the other species that we need to talk about is the Homo neanderthalensis, usually just called Neanderthals. So Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals coexisted, at least for some duration of time. However, Neanderthals started to disappear around about 60,000 years ago during the Middle Stone Age, and some scholars believe that Homo sapiens outcompeted them, maybe through warfare. But this is only speculative, so just know that there were other Homo species in the past. I think there were about like 50 or something. Alright, so this ends the story of the Old and Middle Stone Ages. Before going on to the New Stone Age, just to recap, by the end of the Middle Stone Age, it's believed that humans, so Homo sapiens, could make tools from stone, had access to fire, had the ability to speak, and was able to engage in complex activities such as art and rituals. Now, that is to say, and this is a point I want to drive home, that is to say that Homo sapiens had the mental capacity to abstract, the ability to comprehend and communicate ideas. And this ability to abstract, most probably accounts for the next biggest revolution, which happens during the New Stone Age, agriculture. So the New Stone Age, it spans from 10,000 BC to 2200 BC, about 5 Jesuses. What distinguishes the New Stone Age is agriculture, which is the next revolution after fire that we saw earlier. During the New Stone Age, we see people creating settlements instead of continuously moving about. And that's most probably due to agriculture. Agriculture is important in the context of history because it was the missing piece that later allowed humans to create great civilizations. At this point, you may be wondering what the criteria are for a civilization. In much the same way as defining history, civilization, this word, is also a contentious word to define. However, here's my take on it. A civilization requires the following things, 3 things. A certain way of life special to the society. 2, a system of supporting many people. And 3, economic surplus. The first 2 criteria may have been around before the New Stone Age, but continuously having economic surplus was only achieved through agriculture. In this way, the key ingredients for a civilization are seen during the New Stone Age, and the key ingredients are seen at least in Asia and the Middle East by around 5000 BC. Now, some interesting facts about the New Stone Age. Well, the first instance of agriculture is most probably seen in eastern China, near the rivers, in 9000 BC. Another important region is in the Middle East, called the Fertile Crescent. It's a crescent-shaped area spanning modern-day Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, and Jordan. It's located northeast of Egypt. Yes, I'm right. And this location had ideal agricultural environment, and it is also said to be the region where animal husbandry started. Somewhere during this time, we also see the first use of metal, copper. And that's it. That's the basic run-through of prehistory. If you enjoyed it this far, I want to ask for a like or a comment, if possible. Thanks so much. In summary, Prehistory is defined by the period where nature is the main force that changes humans' way of life. In history, the history that we're really interested in, starts once this power dynamic flips, where now humans are consciously changing the environment to achieve a certain way of life, instead of the environment imposing things on humans. And prehistory is divided into three eras: Old, Middle, and New Stone Age. And during the Old Stone Age, when humans acquire fire, which is the first revolution in all of human history. With fire came many changes, and it is believed to be the major force that helped early forms of Homo sapiens, humans, to evolve into the biologically modern human, both physically and mentally. And by the end of the Middle Stone Age, it's believed that humans could make tools from stone, had access to fire, had the ability to speak, and was able to engage in complex activities such as art and rituals. The key thing here, again, is that humans had the mental capacity to abstract, which allowed for the second revolution, agriculture, to occur and be established during the third era, the New Stone Age. The New Stone Age marks the period where the key ingredients for civilizations were seen. And in this way, prehistory creates the foundation of later civilizations. A lot of what I said comes from this book, The Penguin History of the World by J.M. Roberts and Odd Arne Westad. I highly recommend this book. I put the link for this book in the description box, so do check it out if you're interested. From the next video, I'll be covering ancient civilizations, starting with Mesopotamia. I hope to see you again.